Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's live stream number 8. My name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for joining us for this online event. And if you've not yet already chosen to do so, please consider subscribing. The chat window is open and waiting for your questions. So if you've got a question and you have not yet sent it in to me via email or via Twitter, then drop it in the chat that is over there on your screen, and I will answer your question just as quickly as I possibly can. By way of getting started, I want to address a question that did come in via email last week. And actually, this person had written in several questions and asked me to address them, and also kind of gave me free rein to maybe spread them out over a couple of weeks. So there were so many, and then questions started coming in last week in the chat, so I'm doing exactly that. This is a really great question, though, regarding airflow and engagement. It says, during the airflow exercises in the AAA course, now that's my online method, which is at jeffrolka.com, I tend to suck in my stomach too much during engagement. What is the key thing to look out for or feel when lifting the lower abdominal muscles rather than sucking in your guts, all the while maintaining expanded ribs during successive inhales, such as I did in a previous Q&A, and without creating extra tension and stiffness in the body? So this person has a really, really good explanation for what we're looking for with engagement. It is an expansion through the ribs laterally that we maintain during exhalation or when we're singing, and also inhalation as well. That expansion gives the abdominal muscles really good interaction with the diaphragm, and that's what creates that support that we are so desperately looking for in our singing. And it's a dynamic, sympathetic support that responds to the needs of the vocal folds. So it's very good. Okay, very good stuff. The answer to this question is to move. And Nathaniel, hello. Good to see you. Well, good to see you in the chat anyways. Is to move around. Okay? Once you get into that expanded position, it's okay to move. It's okay to feel around a little bit and find out what you're feeling. That movement will help you to feel more of what the muscles are doing, and that is going to help you to not over-engage or not suck up your guts quite so much. So that is the answer to that question. Thank you for all those questions. Here we have some questions coming in already. This is awesome. Hello, and hello to you, JC's Radiant Ray. Good afternoon to you. Capone, hello, Jeff. What is power push that heavy metal singers used to go to highest pitches? Well, I've not heard specifically of that technique. However, my suspicion is that it has a lot to do with airflow, trying to somehow push one into the higher notes at the top of the register. But I want to warn you against that. Too much force on the vocal fold, particularly too high in range over your secondo passaggio, that is a recipe for vocal fatigue later on down the road. If you want to really have a strong upper register, then work on the transition from thyroarytenoid dominant chest voice to cricothyroid dominant head voice, and making sure that those resonances are the same. That's what's going to really develop power in your upper register. Nathaniel, I have a question. When I sing, in between singing, my voice disappears. Just air comes out. Why does this happen? Could it be vocal nodules? Nathaniel, can you be more specific? Specifically, do you mean that you're singing a line, like you're singing a phrase? Sorry, wrong octave. So you're singing along happily, and all of a sudden it goes, like it dips down like that and is airy. In an otherwise continuous line, or what? Can you be a bit more specific with that, and I will happily answer that. Heidi, good to see you back. Hello. In popular music, how much license does a singer have in interpreting a song? That is an awesome question, and I would like to suggest that you have as much license as you wish. I suppose that there are constraints when it comes to what the reason why you're doing the song. Like if you've been hired to do a cover tune by someone and they have a specific end usage in mind, then maybe there's some constraints there on your interpretation. But if you are doing this for your own edification, your own pleasure and artistic expression, I think, the more imagination that you employ in your arrangement and interpretation, the more you make it your own. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Not everyone's going to like it, but not everyone likes everything anyways. Madonna, I think, once said, whether you like Madonna or not, when asked about making records, said that you've got to make your own record. And I think that that's true whether you're doing your own tunes or you're interpreting something. You got to make the song that you want to make it. You want to make it the way that you are satisfied artistically. Susan. Hello, Susan. I hope you're doing well. Thank you. It has been a challenging day, but not entirely too bad. I hope that you are well as well. I have started watching the diaphragmatic breathing exercise video, and it blew me away how I have been breathing the wrong way when I sing. Thank you for your videos. Thank you. You are very, very welcome. I feel very passionate about breathing for singing and clearing up what I believe is perhaps one of the largest misunderstandings in vocal technique that exists. So I am very glad that video is working for you. If you have any questions, fire away or get in touch otherwise, but you are very welcome. Nathaniel, I'm scared of vocal nodules because I use my voice too much and too high. Okay, and you've said yes. Yes, that's what happens, but worse than that, it's just air. Not a laughing matter, I'm afraid to say. If that's really what's happening, then I have to say you may want to have, if you have access to an ENT, if you have access to someone who can diagnose you properly. I'm not a doctor, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's worth going to your GP, your general practitioner, if that's what's happening, and maybe seeing an ENT as well. I personally have not known anyone who has nodes, but if you're singing that high and that frequently, especially if you're pushing your voice beyond the range of the secondo passaggio, so like for me, that's an F above middle C, right? That's about where my secondo passaggio is. If I'm gonna push chest voice, quote unquote, in other words, I'm gonna not do the transition to my cricothyroid muscles, then I figure I can go up to a G with a certain degree of safety, but I don't want to do it regularly. That's in my mind a bad habit to form. I want to practice the transition so I don't have to fatigue my voice that way. Heidi, thanks. I'm rather conservative and have only dared to change the key. Heidi, changing key is the very first thing. I mean, I would not concern myself in any way with that. You have to remember, or you don't have to do anything, but I would implore you to keep in mind that if you did not write the song and you are not the original artist, and so the song was not written for you either, then it may be in a key which is completely irrelevant to your vocal range. Change the key as a starting point. Like that's where we start, is putting it in a key which is appropriate to your range. In other words, if you're singing Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, in his key, it's going to be almost certainly way too low for nearly any female vocalist. So put it into a key that's going to be comfortable to sing. Work on the tune and find how it moves you, and then decide what you want to do with your arrangement. Nathaniel, okay, thank you so much. You're welcome, Nathaniel. I hope that is not the case. It is simply out of a sense of safety that I would suggest you go and have that done. So yeah. Steven, hello, and hello to you. Heidi, as an alto, I have to. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Heidi. Changing keys is like the first thing we do. Zoroku, hello, and hello to you. Yes, please ask your questions. That is what we are here to do. We are here to ask questions. And for those of you who are just joining, the chat is very much open. So please get your questions in to the chat, and I will take them just as quickly as I possibly can. If you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll consider doing so. And just thank you in general for joining us today. I really appreciate it. So let me see here. I'm curious about your lesson in group and wondering about information. That's a great question, and thank you for asking. I do group lessons primarily for people in bands. Like if you have a band and there's like 2 or 3 people in the band and you're all singing, it can be a lot of fun, and we can like learn from one another, and the people in the band can also hold others accountable. So that's principally what the group lessons are for. I have done drop-in group classes in the past. I don't have any going right now, but if something should open up in the future, just keep in touch via the website or via this chat, and I will certainly let you know. I have done a few group classes back in California from time to time, and there is an online group class that is going to be coming up in the near future, which I had forgotten about until just this moment. And the best way to find out about that would be to sign up for the mailing list over at jeffrolka.com. If you're on that mailing list, you'll get notified. Sorry about that. You'll get notified when that group opens up. Metsa Satima, hello to you. Can you please elaborate about how to find resonance through aiming for the soft palate and hard palate? Awesome question. Let me have a quick sip of water here. Okay, resonance. There is a really cool method for soft palate, and that in the soft palate resonance primarily revolves around lifting it. So if you do the smile, you've heard of the inner smile? It usually starts with a big toothy grin, like that. And what that will do, if you do that, you'll notice that way in the back, way in the back, you'll feel this like this lifting, and that is the soft palate lifting up, and that has the impact of changing this to this. Now I'm not entirely sure how much that reads over the setup here in the microphone, but it increases the brightness in your voice quite a bit. This has a very dramatic effect on projection. It is a key component to making a smooth transition through your zona di passaggio. So as you get higher into your range, and for me, I'm going to sing up to about, I'm going to go into my zona di passaggio without going through it. Here, as I get to the top of my chest voice, if I let that palate drop, even if I sing in tune, it sounds flat because there isn't enough brightness and resonance that's occurring. As I lift it again, everything starts to come nicely into alignment. And that is because there are more higher partials that are speaking, more resonance, and that gives the human ear the idea that I'm in tune, even though I was in tune in both instances. So resonances are really important. You can find them by doing the NG sound, which is, if you say hung, that NG there, it's shooting all the air through my nose. And you really have to keep that buzz happening. If it starts to sound like this, listen. Hopefully you can hear that go from really bright and resonant to kind of covered and hooty. And that is the resonance shifting. We want to keep it the same. When we've got that happening, we can release the tongue and get a nice smooth resonance sound. Another way you can find that resonance is to sort of, I think it's called snuffling, like a pig would snuffle. You can feel the soft palate flapping, and that can put you in touch with the muscles that will help you lift it. Another way is point. And that is not a particularly pleasant sound, but again, it can get things vibrating and clue you into what needs to lift in order to bring those resonances forward. There will be a sweet spot that you will find, and depending on the genre that you're singing or your setup, whether you're using microphones and things like that, sometimes more or less will be appropriate. You have to be flexible with it. We don't ever want to set it and forget it. In pro audio, there's this myth of set it and forget it. And we don't do that. We have to be adaptable. Okay? Once again, thank you all for tuning in today. I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to have you all here and chatting and having the opportunity to address questions and concerns about your voices. If you are a subscriber, thank you. And if not, please do consider doing so. I really, really appreciate it. And the chat is open, and a lot of you are using it, but I just want to encourage everybody to dive in with the chat. The chat is good. Okay. Capone, what is the best spot in someone's range and how to find it? Golden voice, D2 to A4. That's a impressive range. Very impressive range. I don't know if I can really generalize that. It depends so much on your fosh. Do you know what your fosh is, Capone? Can you tell me what your fosh is? That's going to have a lot. That's going to have a lot to say about where your sweet spot's going to be. Yeah, and with that range, I have my suspicions, but it's good to know where the zona de passaggio is. Like knowing where the zona de passaggio is going to also help you determine where your sweet spot is. Zoruku, I'm on the email list, I believe. Excellent, that's great. Danielle, thank you very much. Hugs from England to you in Brazil. Thank you for joining us today. I suppose it's earlier in the day. I guess it's about 1 in the afternoon, is that right? Maz Satima, thank you very much. I found that mask placement has really added more colors to my singing. Absolutely, absolutely. The mask really, really does color up things a lot. And in that respect, this is where, nasal resonance is so maligned in vocal teachings. Like, you mustn't ever have this nasal resonance. But it's a part of our sound. And particularly if we're pop singers and if we're using a microphone, those frequencies are going to really help us project. Whether you're using a microphone or not, it really helps us project through the texture that we're singing with, whether it's a band, and then you're almost certainly using a mic, or if you're a singer-songwriter and you're in a cafe and you don't have any equipment, that coloration, that brilliance will really help you carry. JC's Radiant Ray, would you care to share your creative process for selecting a key for a specific tune? I like variety. I would hate to sing always in the same key. Absolutely. My process for selecting a key begins first with considering where the original artist has placed it. Although I suppose I shouldn't say original artist. For example, I'm working on To Make You Feel My Love, which is a Bob Dylan song. And I didn't really listen to Bob Dylan sing it. I was listening to Billy Joel sing it, and I heard Adele's version as well. But I've always listened to Billy Joel sing To Make You Feel My Love. Billy Joel sings it or at least back in the 60s when he recorded it, he did it in the key of G. And that's a pretty good key for me. But I wanted to have a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more play, if you will. And I suppose this is where the creativity comes. And at that point, I start to go all over the place. So I'll play that tune in, all the keys that are all, like say a major second to a minor third above, and then I played it down as much as a perfect fourth. So I went up to B flat above G, and then I went all the way down to D major, and that was just way too low. But I feel like when we explore those different key areas, we learn about the tune, and it can inform what we want to do with it, how we want to change it or adapt it. What about the song is speaking to me, and how I'm going to kind of put myself into it. And then I find out where I'm settling, and then I might live with it for a week or two. Really, really memorize the lyrics, memorize the song, see if I'm truly, truly comfortable there, if it's really satisfying my artistic endeavors with covering the song. And then I go from there. If I find that it's not quite right, I might adjust it. Generally speaking, I'm usually pretty close, and a half step in either direction from where I settle on at that point doesn't make a huge difference to my vocal delivery. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pragmatic considerations as well. I try not to let those make the ultimate decision for my voice, because it has to be about the voice. But certain songs, if they're meant to be played on guitar and they have lots and lots of riffs and they require certain tunings or certain patterns for the chord changes, work well in some keys and not as well in others, and I can't get to it via a capo, then I may make a bit more of a compromise. But in general, that's my process. Gerardo, could you please share an exercise to help me sing lengthy notes? I find myself running out of breath rather easily. Yes. This is tricky. I would probably do this. This is what I would do. Now I know that the top has a trill and it's not a steady held note, but that action is meant to keep our voice loose and to keep the air moving. At the end of the day, we're still moving air out of our body. So it's a longer phrase. And I would start it with a lip trill. So that's where I would begin. Oftentimes, people will find that they can do phrases much longer with a lip trill than they can with the vowels. So once you've got that happening with the vowel, or with the lip trill, then move it to an E. E. And then move around to the next vowel. E. Then start with A. A. And finally, looking to make sure that the resonance is all the same. Frequently, in my experience, and I haven't heard you sing, so it could be different, but in my experience, when clients have issues with long phrases, it's because of an inefficiency of vowel formation. The vowels aren't as zipped up as they could be, and so you're losing a lot of air. You also may be losing air at the tonal onset. So like when you're doing the lip trill, if it goes and then it clicks in, you've lost a lot of air before you've even made any sound. So you've got to get those abdominal muscles engaged so your lip trill starts immediately. After you've done all that and you found that you've got some really good efficiency, double it. And start the process over again with the vowels. Notice how I'm moving my head. I'm staying loose. We got to stay loose. If we tense up, tissues get tense and we lose air. And that's what I would do. Steven, would you agree, considering that actually when you think modally instead of scale, we are actually singing in, for instance, G major, A Dorian, etc. So if I sing comfortably in D, I'm also singing well in F. No? Well, I presume when you say comfortably in D and you say well in F, I assume you mean F sharp, because of course the third scale degree in D major is F sharp. Well, yes, but, I mean, yes and no. The thing is that, sure, the modes are contained as part of the major scale. But the range continues to change as you move through your different modes. So this is D major. That has a range of D right above low C to D right above middle C. Well, E Dorian has a different range. It's from the E to E. And then Phrygian has a different range as well. So it depends on the melody and where it's all starting. Oh, D minor, F major. Yeah, same difference that we're discussing. Although I think that I'm actually not even entirely sure. I've never called modes off of the minor scales, considering that the minor scale is Aeolian mode. So I'm not entirely sure what that would be. Maz Satima, how consistent daily practice? How long will it take me to become really good at singing? Sight singing. Great question. Really, really good question. Well, consistent daily practice is key, whether it's sight singing or just singing in general. So keep your practice up. I'm always, I'm fond of saying, and it's very cliche, 15 minutes or a half an hour every day is way better than an hour on the weekend, or 2 hours on the weekend, or whatever it is on the weekends, 4 hours on the weekend. We want to be consistent. That's how we're going to get better and better. With your sight singing, you have to be very specific with doing the work and making sure that you're keeping the sight singing fresh. So, and I would also add that it would probably be rather helpful to incorporate some amount of solfege or neutralizing factor. So, if you're familiar with do re mi fa sol la ti do la so fa mi re do, then that can really, really help your sight singing come along, because you can go and do like inner voices on Bach chorales is always going to be the best thing for your sight singing, for your solfege in general. They're so challenging. They're so chromatic. They go through key changes. They will do amazing things for your ear training. And it just takes a little bit every single day. And then you've got to keep fresh stuff coming up. If you do a web search for real books or public domain real books or something like that, I just found like these vocal real books, and it was something called like the million dollars of songs, and I think it was like 10 volumes. It's millions of songs, and many of them I've never heard of. They're not, some of them are kind of cool, but it doesn't really matter because what we're practicing here is sight singing, so you need tons and tons of fresh material. The only bummer with some of that stuff is it's really hard to read. It's obviously scanned off of, just handwritten manuscript or really, really old photocopied stuff. and so they can be a little bit challenging to read, but it's tons and tons of stuff that you can practice with. JC's Radiant Ray, interesting, thank you. I had not considered the difference in context of piano versus guitar for key changes. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, piano and guitar are all concert pitch, so C major on the guitar is C major on the piano. But, for example, if you're playing a piece that has a walking down bass part, where you've got this, like, you know, that will be easy to do with some chord facings on the guitar, and it will be very much more challenging, if not nearly impossible, or at least implausible, to sing at the same time on the guitar. So, you know, that's where capoing comes into play and the kinds of chord facings that you want to use. Zoroko, trying to get a rocker voice, but I am a beginner. Tips or something I need to know before settling that genre? Focus on your basics. If you're a beginner, then focus on your basics right now. I just released 2 new videos, which I was very pleased with, if I may say so myself. Today they came out and they were focusing on beginning technique. I'm meaning to do more and more beginner videos for the channel, and I really am going to get on that. I promise I'm going to do more of those. And that is where I really wanted to expand the channel this year. So get in there and get to basics. Get to the basics. And as they become concrete for you, then start looking at fine-tuning your resonance and adapting your voice, learning what you need to do in order to reach the register that you'll need to sing in, and fine-tuning like the resonances for your voice, so you make sure you're cutting through the band. That would be my advice to you. Focus on fundamentals for right now. If you're a beginner, focus on the fundamentals. What is a minor? Minor is a tonality. So a lot of times we're in the major keys. A major key, this is F major, and I can do to the 2 chord, 5. So that's 2, 5, 1. In popular music, usually we use 4, 4, and 5, so it might sound something like this. Frequently, it's also like this. Okay? That's all major. Minor keys start off that way. That would be the minor, F minor. And the rules are subtly different, too. The way that we have to lead voices is different. And there are certain ways that we bend the rules as well. So, for example, in minor, you don't often get a 2, 5, 1 because 2 in minor is diminished. So we don't necessarily do that. And we also borrow from the 5 to drive us back to 1. So here's 1. That's the borrowed 5 chord to 1. In English, that's F minor to C major, really C6, 5, because I'm playing an E in the bass. So 1, F minor to C, and then back to the 1 chord. In its simplest terms, however, that's C major. If I play that from A to A, that is the natural minor of A minor. It is called the relative minor to C major. Everything about it is the same. You can't see my keyboard, but in C major you play all the white keys. And for A minor, it's all white keys too. That's the simplest explanation for it. Steven, thank you. You are very welcome. I'm happy to help. Aditya, how to get a strong falsetto? Mine sounds so weak. It even falls flat. Yeah, falsettos often fall flat because it's actually a high vocal fold way of singing. So like if and falsetto is typically thought to be this airy sound above the secondo passaggio. So for me, that would be like, and if you want to sing in tune, you've got to really, really back off the tension. You got to really back off your engagement. But my suggestion to you would be to not sing that way. And it would be to learn to make a good transition through your secondo passaggio. So there I'm making a transition to my head voice. And then if you want to have that light, kind of airy Aaron Neville thing, just blend a little bit of air back into it. Rather than going full on like that. That would be my suggestion. So learn to make a good transition through the sonata passaggio, through the secondo passaggio, and then when you've established a good head voice, what I would call cricothyroid dominant singing, blend a little air into it. So Roku, can you explain about the false chord? Sure. I feel like I should say that this is a fairly highly contentious kind of realm to talk about. But your voice has the vocalis muscle, which is also called the thyroarytenoid muscle. That is the main muscle underneath the vocal fold. Your vocal fold sits like if you took my head off and then you had this like thing in there, that would be the vocal fold, and they go like a wave when air passes over them. So underneath one side of the vocal fold, you have the thyroarytenoid muscle. Then you've got some tissue on top, and then you have a ligament on top of that. Typically, when people talk about the false chord, they're talking about the ligament vibrating. Also, there's some mucus on top of that too. And that's what the false chord is. And as I just demonstrated in that other thing about the falsetto, in too low of a range, it comes off super, super airy when you get that ligament vibrating. But as you get higher and higher, when that ligament is a more natural part of the tone production, it sounds much fuller. And so that is my understanding of the false chord. It is the ligament that is across the top of the vocal fold along with the tissue there. Thank you for asking. That was a cool question. And yes, Kiponi, to Zoruku about being a metal thing or a metal singer or rocker, attitude. Attitude is key. Melissa Cross actually discusses that really, really well. She did a spot on Dave Letterman ages and ages ago. If you search for it on YouTube, you'll find it. And she describes being a rocker in 3 steps. To simplify it, establishing your technique, and then the face, putting on that attitudinal face there. Masatima, it's brilliant. I use the movable do solfege method. Being a jazz guy, I'm trying to learn at least a standard every week. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad I brought that up. It was crazy. If you do that search, you'll find like the real book for vocalists. You'll find it's all this public domain stuff, and it was wonderful. It was just wonderful, and quite necessary at the time because I've got a client in London that is doing some needs to work on some sight singing and things like that, and so it was great to have all this stuff. So yeah, do that search and find it. To Capone, pardon. Yeah, you guys will sort that out. Zoroko, okay, I will do the basic. Excellent. And keep in touch. Let me know how it all goes. Just a quick little reminder, thank you for watching. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining us for the live event. If you're not yet a subscriber, please consider doing so. There's a little screen of me, little thing with a microphone. You can click on that and take care of it. The chat is clearly open, so please fire off your questions. We're 2/3 of the way through. So we got about another 20 minutes here, so do get your questions into the chat, and I will take them just as quickly as I possibly can. Aziz, can you explain vowel modification? I feel tension with E and A. Yes, I would love to. Thank you for asking. Vowel modification occurs as we near the zona di passaggio. And the key is to not push it too much. We need to practice it when we're first learning how to do it. And a general rule of thumb is to modify your vowels towards the schwa vowel, or So if for example, you speak French, the word in French for butter is beurre, du beurre. And that sound is what we want to move everything towards. So if I'm singing E, and here in my chest range, it's pretty chill. E, I don't really need to do anything to it. It's fine. But as I get closer to my zona di passaggio, E, I'm kind of slightly opening that vowel as I get near the zona di passaggio, and I'm allowing it to narrow as I descend again. You may not hear much of it, because I want to maintain a consistent sound. But when we first start learning this, we let it go towards quite a lot better, or quite a lot more, excuse me. Leaning towards And as you get better and better, you will find that you can learn to just open it only as much as is necessary to get that range to stay consistent. So you keep it balanced. We always want to be balanced with that. The A is the same. A should actually be even easier to modify because it's on the spectrum of vowels. E is the most narrow, forward-focusing vowel. A is a little bit wider than E. A. You can hear it leaning towards A. A. And then as I want it to match more, I keep that brightness, that lift. A. But I still allow the opening to occur as I ascend. Sirocco, good. I'm glad about the minor. Capone, what about siren sounds and octave slides? Are those basics or should I use them? Of course, after a good warm-up. Yes, warm up well. That is good. The siren sounds, I think of the siren sounds as a way to learn to begin to make a successful transition through the zona di passaggio. So what we're learning to do is to be in a cricothyroid dominant singing voice, what we would call the head voice. And then get into our thyroarytenoid dominant voice, or our chest voice. So you practice this a while. And there you could hear the click over a little bit more clearly when I went from head to chest, right? And we practice that to smooth it out, From there, and this is covered in depth in How to Sing High Notes Part 1, which is for male vocalists. But there are female equivalents on the channel as well. From there, we start to narrow the interval that we're navigating. So then we go to octave arpeggios, usually with U. U, 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 U. Notice how the top note's very dull. U, U, U. And everything else is quite a bit narrower. U, U, U. This is a refining of that process. Now we're sticking to specific pitches, and we've got a specific interval that we deal with. From there, we get into arpeggios, or arpeggios that are only 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. U, 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 U. Again, learning to make transitions through the zona di passaggio from thyroid dominant to cricothyroid dominant and back. And we go from there, and we just keep on refining it. So are they basics? I don't think of them as basics. I think that you will find those to be more helpful when you have really well-established engagement and airflow and a good understanding of vowel formation in the thyroid dominant range and how you're going to open those vowels as you ascend towards the zona de passaggio. We're into the last 15 minutes, just a heads up, everybody, so do get your questions in. I will do my best to take them all today. How much of practice do I need? This is Kruthi. How much practice do I need to do every day? 10-minute warm-up and 10-minute agility? I'd say that's a pretty good start. I think that yes, warm up for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minute warm up, 10 of just pure warm ups and some agility is really, really cool. However, I would take a very careful look at what it is you're singing, the parts that are challenging, and then learn, because these warm ups, I mean, I've got like over 100 warm ups on this channel. But they're not really just warm-ups. They're actually technical exercises, and I've constructed them in ways to help whoever's using them get more and more out of the voice. You'll notice I stick to there are vowel combinations and sequences of vowels that are fairly consistent from video to video to video. That's for a reason. If I'm skipping something, it's for a reason. And those reasons apply to the songs that you're singing. So if there's a challenging part in your song, look at the vowels, look at the phrasing, look at all of that, and then find the exercise that you need to do. For example, you know, if you're singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right? It's got an octave leap. Somewhere over the rainbow, and then it goes on from there, okay? That octave leap may prove challenging. And there's a video for that does leaps and intervals. I think it's called like Warm Up Your Intervals, right? You've got to analyze what you're doing and then address the technical aspects that exist in your songs, and that's what's going to help make you an even better and more compelling vocalist. So yeah, 10 minutes of warm-up, 10 minutes of agility. Take a look at those songs, figure out the technical challenges in those songs, find the vocalizations, apply them. That's what we want to do here. Danielle, the transition notes. Can you define better? I mean, what's going on for you? Be more specific. Are they coming out strained? Do you have a really clicky transition, like you're really like popping over? Are they airy? What's going on? Aziz, is there a link between breathing and jaw tension? Yeah, man, absolutely. Watch yourself in the mirror. And if you go like this, you've got a lot of unconscious action between your breathing and what your jaw is doing. One way to work on that is to use a mirror. Hold your jaw still. That's going to take the motion of the jaw out of the equation. You can't move your jaw if you're holding it still. When you can take your hands away and you can still go pardon me. Then practice opening and closing. It opens as we ascend, it closes as we descend. Ideally, we want the jaw to move independently of what it is we're singing or whether we're breathing. And if you've got a link then or they're kind of codependent. They're in a codependent relationship. That's gonna cause a lot of tension. That tension typically translates to the tongue, and that can lead to all kinds of like little issues. Nothing, no showstoppers really. You're probably not gonna hurt yourself, but it can really diminish your effectiveness. So Roku, I was on the first beginner video and wondering when it is a good idea to go to the next video. Is when you finish the video. What I would suggest you do, Zaruko, is use that video. If you've been using that video for like a week or something, then switch over to one of the other ones. But maybe do the new one 6 days. And then on the 7th day, do the other one. And then after a week of that, go on to another one and kind of shift it around. It's not as if any one of those videos is going to... there is a sequence to them, but without knowing where you're starting, I don't know where to send you next. I'm actually in the process of writing an ebook that's going to take all of the videos that I have released on YouTube and sequence them. Not like one giant sequence of 300 some odd videos, but like this group of 3 videos can help you do this. This group of 3 videos can help you do that. And they'll help inform your decisions. But from the beginner playlist, mainly pick a couple and switch them up, but stick with one for like a week. If you're really, really new to singing, you're a really new vocalist, then stick with the ones that are staccato, short notes. We. Those are going to help balance your tone and get your voice working really efficiently. And it's going to be a lot easier to go to melismatic, or connected syllables. Those are melismatic exercises. It'll be easier to go to melismatic exercises when you've got a well-balanced, efficient vocal fold closure. Aditya, thank you for that. One more question. Can one learn vibrato? Yes. Of course. Of course you can learn vibrato. Vibrato is a naturally occurring aspect of our voices when we have a well-balanced, well-supported vocal fold. It's a dynamic relationship between the musculature of the vocal fold and the diaphragm and how the air is flowing over things. If you do a search on my channel for a vibrato video, it's there. However, you can begin the process of understanding your vibrato in almost any of the videos on the channel. The thing is to notice when you start to feel your voice. You'll as you start to develop a vibrato, it typically manifests initially as a sort of wiggliness to the voice. Or it may feel as if your voice is going to crack, or it's not entirely stable. You can hear my voice wiggling. It's vibrato a little bit in there. I was going to try to stop it from doing that. But when you truly cultivate release, when you've got good airflow and you're cultivating release here, it's a very naturally occurring thing. And so you'll feel it start to shift underneath you. Hear it, feel it, encourage it. Let it start to wiggle for you. You'll feel it. But the best thing to do to develop your vibrato, the one thing that's going to truly help your vibrato to come sooner than later is to focus on your airflow and engagement. Watch if you haven't seen the video on Apagio breath management, I think it's called Apagio breathing. That's where I would have you start. And then search for the vibrato video, and you can practice those exercises, but in the context of the Apagio breath management system. JC's Radiant Ray. I like to sing in 2 different genres, classicals and pop, absolutely. In the same season, do you think it would be more productive if I focused on only one genre at a time? I would suppose that when we focus our full attention on any one thing, we tend to do a bit more with it than we might if we're dividing our attention. I'm thinking of Wynton Marsalis here. Wynton Marsalis is a trumpet player. He's been making amazing music for decades. For decades, he has been incredible. And he goes back and forth between jazz and classical at a ridiculously high level. I mean, ridiculously high levels. And I think that he can move fairly quickly between the two genres, but in an interview many, many years ago, he said that it takes him about 6 months to feel really, really integrated into the genre that he is in. So I think that as you cultivate those skills, you'll find the transitions easier and easier, but that there's always going to be a little bit of time. I'm also thinking about, I work with lots and lots of singers who also play. That's something that I do quite a lot of. And no matter how integrated their skill sets are, when I play the piano and have them sing without having to play their instrument, they always notice it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit more connected with their voice. And it's simply just a matter of, dividing our attention. But that being said, like, we don't win for not playing. And what I mean by that is we just got to keep on practicing, keep on going at it. And if you want to switch genres in the season, then I would commend you for doing it, and just do it and do it and do it, and try to notice the things that catch you up when you make the switch. My suspicion is it's going to be rhythm, and of course, for you, it's going to be range as well. If I'm thinking about this correctly, because you are very much in different ranges in your different genres, and so that lower register singing for you may have. You may have to shrug that off. It may take a little bit to shrug that off because of the lower abduction of the vocal fold that you're employing in that. Kruti, how can you sign up for a class? Get in touch via the website, voicelessonssf.com. I'll type it in the chat here, www.voicelessonssf.com. Oops. There's a form there. You can get in touch, and we can go from there if you want to get a lesson or a class. Capone, so little time here. Imitate the car starting. I don't understand that, I'm afraid. JC's Radiant Ray, I suppress my vibrato when singing pop music. Is that a problem? When you suppress the vibrato, you're utilizing a high vocal fold engagement position. So if I remember correctly, as a pop singer, you're singing lower. So I wouldn't expect that to be too big of a problem. My concern with vibrato suppression is that as it gets higher and higher in your range, then you're going into a higher register of your voice with a higher amount of vocal fold engagement, and that can cause unnecessary fatigue. And over time, I think you'd have to do a lot of that to cause any kind of real harm. But anytime we're creating a high vocal fold engagement scenario, then we're going to fatigue more quickly. Intonation, like singing in or out of tune, is going to be less reliable. All that kind of stuff. Aziz, is the contraction in abdominal muscles helps to not breathing by pushing these muscles? If I understand that correction, if I understand that question correctly, okay, right, okay. With the Apagio breath management system, we expand laterally here. These muscles engage and lift up. The diaphragm is pulled down. It's that interplay between the diaphragm in that down position and the lifting of the abdominal muscles, that interplay is what creates the suspension, what I call engagement, that really, really enables us to keep our voice free. It cultivates release in the voice. And that is, what's your question here? I think that's what you're asking. So yes, by using those abdominal muscles, we're using the abdominal muscles to influence the behavior of the diaphragm. The diaphragm will want to resist that pressure, and that creates the suspension. I think that's what you're getting at. Curious about how much money it is if you want to do Skype or FaceTime lessons. Kimberly, the best way to do all that is to get in touch via voicelessonssf.com. It's on the screen because there's like a variety of different things that I do, packages and discounts and stuff like that. So better to just get in touch that way, and we can suss it all out via email. But thank you for asking. I really appreciate it. And that's actually it. It's 7 o'clock here in England, so I'm going to thank you once again for coming out and typing in your questions and all of that stuff. My name is Jeff. I really appreciate you watching. Do consider subscribing if you've not yet already. And if you didn't have a chance to have your questions answered in the chat this week, I'll be here next week. I'll actually be broadcasting from Paris next week. So I will see you in the City of Lights. Thank you for watching. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you back here again. And thank you, Heidi. I really appreciate it. Bye.